Hi guys, thank you so much for coming. I chose this topic because complementary alternative medicine is something that's becoming much more prevalent today. We are seeing through tons of research that drugs don't always work. The more money we put into medication, oftentimes we find more side effects, more problems. So let's look at natural methodology. It's a new surge in research to look at the alternative methods, the natural methods, as we've entered into a health kick here in the world. We have, gluten-free and all of these different things that have kind of ignited a desire to look into homeopathic methods. So before I begin, one acknowledgement. Thank you, Dr. Morgan. She's here with us. You have just really helped inspire research in me, and I just thank you so much for getting me to do this, getting me up here. So basically, before I start, am I not loud enough? Okay, so is it on? Am I really louder? Okay. So menopause starts with women ages 40 to 50. It can start a little later. Basically, the women in the room know that it's when you finally stop menses, your eggs stop ovulating, and you produce a lot less estrogen. Estrogen is integral in the way the female body functions, and there are a lot of side effects that come along with stopping that. And those side effects include you get a lot of dryness, you have more urinary tract infections, yeast infections because your pH changes, and you have weight gain because your estrogen is searching for other areas in your body. Your body's looking for extra estrogen elsewhere, and it causes a lot of different hormonal processes. To begin, I could go into them, but it's quite a bit of there's a lot of androstenedione and whatnot that morph into estrogen through different methods, and it causes the weight gain. It even affects you psychologically. There's depression, there's anxiety, there's a decreased libido, and that would be partly due to weight gain a lot of the times. It also has to do with the depression. So basically, menopause happens to every woman, and it can be really detrimental to the family unit because husband doesn't really know how to help. It's completely different. The children understand that mom's a little grumpier than normal, and they don't get why. There's not much they can do about it. So sexuality, being the point of this topic, it is something that the human experiences in a way that any other creature doesn't get to experience. It's a trifold mechanism. There's the biological, so what your body does with the sexuality, what it does with the different pheromones and whatnot, the intimate, which has to do with relationships, the way our brain connects with people, and then the aesthetic, which has to do with the environment surrounding your sexuality. And you're not going to have it in some situations versus others because there's just not as much of an environmental trigger. And when those dimensions become out of balance, they're shifted, the aesthetic's not there because you're upset that you gained 20 pounds in a very short amount of time for no reason otherwise, and when the intimate's not there because your husband doesn't understand why you're upset, or you just don't feel like you anymore, your sexuality decreases. And it, like I said, it really has a devastating impact on the family unit. Our divorce rate in America is sky high. It's 50.6%, so 1 in 2 families. And no, I don't have data on how often menopause is an enormous effect on that, but it plays a part in affairs for sure. So the symptom cycle, I was explaining some symptoms. So we see that estrogen is diminished, which causes the things in the purple circle in the middle. So depression, anxiety, weight gain, the same things that I discussed. And all of a sudden, there's diminished sexual desire, you don't feel worthy anymore, and relational intimacy has decreased a lot. Your husband's watching more TV instead of paying attention to you. And the cycle here is never ending. You have more anxiety because you feel less worthy. You have weight gain because there's not as much intimacy. So what else do? You sit around and you eat Oreos. That's what you do to cope with it. Every woman goes through it. And as I said earlier, it eventually leads to a strain on the relationship. Like I said, the kids don't understand what's going on. It leads to midlife crisis and affairs by either party. The woman desires to feel desired, or the man just isn't having his needs met, so they go elsewhere, and it ends in divorce. and a lot of other problems. So my first study, basically what I did is this was a synthesis of research that's currently out there right now. And the most foundational piece of research that I found in this entire study was something called Of Rats in Women. And what it did was try to figure out why menopause happens. This study is quite an old study, but it was the framework for what I was looking into. And it proved that menopause is not purely all in your head, like many male gynecologists will tell. Personal side note, my mother went to her gynecologist and wanted to know what was going on, and he said, really, most of it's all in your head. You just need to get over it and stop listening to what people say about menopause. So obviously she found a new gynecologist. But a lot of people don't understand the intricate brain network that is very much involved. It's really quite systemic. So the rats, after a certain age, mice also go through menopause, surprisingly. And they found out that these rats, once they got to a certain age, and then some of them were triggered through hormones to age faster. So they looked at two different groups. The female rats stopped receiving intromissions from the males. They refused. Honestly, they got quite sassy about it. And they really didn't partake in any of the normal sexual patterns that mice normally do. Even the ones that were younger sexually active mice that had been forced to age. So it wasn't just the older mice. The complete shift in hormones that they induced still caused this menopausal effect. So, as I said, this proved that menopause exists. So what do we do with it now? Well, hormone replacement therapy became the next step. Oh, you don't have estrogen anymore. Here's some estrogen in pill form, and you still experience the implications, plus the side effects. Maybe you don't gain weight anymore because you have estrogen, but the pill itself causes you to gain weight. So really, where are you? Are you any better off? No, it causes migraines. The side effects of the pill itself are exponential. It's one of those 12-page booklets of, oh man, what can happen? So one of the first oils that can be utilized, the aromatherapy oils, is sandalwood. In this study, they took a whole bunch of women and put them in a dentist waiting office, and they sprayed sandalwood on one chair. And the women, 67% of the women chose that chair to sit in versus any of the other chairs, even before being 18 inches away, which was the point in which they could smell the sandalwood. So basically, sandalwood produces very similar pheromones to the ones that men naturally produce. So men, we all sweat, but men have a particular hormone in their sweat that women find attractive, and it's right before it's converted to body odor. So once it gets to that point, no. But right as it's being released, there's androstenedione in it, and it triggers desire, sexuality, libido. So the women would actually choose that chair well before they could smell it because there were natural pheromones that were being released from the chair. And then when they were asked about it afterwards, they were saying, like, yeah, I actually called my husband while I was there, and I really haven't thought about him in that way in a long time. And the results were remarkable from the pheromones being released in this study. So basically, in this situation, aromatherapy methods can actually trigger the natural sexual intimacy that happens between two people. And another one, it's called neroli oil. There's the Latin if you're so inclined. This one, you can inhale multiple times a day. Aromatherapy oils can be ingested, they can be inhaled, or they can be topical as well, and they can have an effect on your skin. And they can be used for different things in different delivery systems as well. So this increased sexual desire. It even improved mentation. A lot of women in menopause lose focus. They have career problems because they just can't focus at work anymore. The boss doesn't understand why. She doesn't either. And it decreased hot flashes as well. And living in South Florida as a menopausal woman is I'm sure a whole other story. Can't speak personally. It also improves depression and anxiety levels. So this one is less likely to actually affect your sexuality per se, but what it does is it takes care of the other side effects that you have that would otherwise impede the sexual desires, because you're not sweating and not understanding why you're having hot flashes, and your husband's not yelling at you for a higher electricity bill because you don't have the AC cranked up so high. So citrus oils have already been proven in other studies to be mood enhancers as well. And when mixed with almond oil, it automatically leads to a sexual drive increaser. And it actually, I don't have the values here, but it changed the estrogen levels in the blood by plus 1.61. So as a menopausal woman, you have a negative 0.64 estrogen in your system. That is the scale that they use in blood testing. And after taking this 2 or 3 times a day, inhaling it, the estrogen levels increased to 1.61. So it actually not only was a mental change, there was a physical as well. So clary sage and lavender are 2 plants that can be made into oils that are actually phytoestrogens. They are natural estrogens in a much smaller amount than what you have naturally, of course, but they actually mimic and reproduce the same things that our body does. And clary sage can actually be used for premenstrual syndrome as well, to decrease the cramping and whatnot. So remarkably effective in women's health. So this was coupled with massage oil on the back. They went and underwent normal massages, these women. That would be a nice study to participate in. And one group of women had just massage oil, and then the other group had the sage and lavender included in the oil. And actually, there was reports. Most of these studies are qualitative. They're interview format, and the women said they actually felt much more sexually driven after their massage than they had in a while, whereas the ones that didn't have additional sage and lavender felt no different. So furthermore, vetiver oil increases blood circulation, which when used on, then it obviously can increase blood flow, which automatically releases any of the hormonal reserves you already have up. So it doesn't change any levels in your blood, it just redirects all of that blood to your your sexual areas, and it can help with the sexuality there. And then yang oil, which is a very common one in any starter kit that you find. Women using this twice a day and right before sexual intercourse found that this study actually coupled it. The control group were women on hormone replacement therapy. They actually put it side by side with the medication, and it was remarkably more effective. They felt an increase in sexuality and said that they felt like their former self, which isn't something that these women actually can report on a daily basis at all. So much of the research that I found were done early 2000s, 1990s. They're at their latest 16 years old. It was really hard to find current research on this. That being said, it's kind of fallen out of the public eye as something that needs to be researched and addressed, and we like to assume that the hormone pills are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and women just need to deal with it, and it's not working. So psychological manifestations of menopause are really real, and they have a physiological source that's been seen, and there needs to be treatment for it. And we've found that aromatherapeutic methods are even more effective. So even, as I said, even more effective than the standard Western medicine treatments. And as furthering research opportunity, a lot of doctors would be more willing to prescribe this methodology if the nurses that do this research, because it's mostly nurses that have researched this, could figure out the chemical components of these oils to figure out exactly why they're effective, and then we actually could begin to implement it in our care modalities. Doctors like a lot more concrete evidence, and they want to know the sterols and the benzene rings on these therapies that we don't do, but if we did, they would be more likely to take it. So to find a better symptom manager for these women would be able to increase the family unit communication and productivity, really the efficacy of family life in the world, really, but North America, we suffer from menopause more because of our diets. It actually affects us more because many of us are obese. It could even lower the divorce rate in the US because they would be able to communicate better in the way that they did when they were 25 and got married. And there are innumerable health benefits to intercourse itself, and it's not just a feel-good thing. It actually lowers cholesterol, it helps with weight. There are a lot of different benefits of it, and more women could participate in it without the vaginal dryness, without the UTIs that happen, and it could really increase health promotion among women as well. And really, above all else, in holistic nursing, it returns the woman back to who they are. You can focus on their spiritual needs by making them feel like who they used to be, and they lose that after menopause starts. So there's the references, and are there any questions? Yes?
Based on the, going back to your mice research study, did you find any other aromatherapy research topics that would apply this to maybe younger women who don't necessarily have the menopause factor but have other like excess androgen or other factors that would affect their hormone levels? And
I did not see anything on polycystic ovary syndrome no, I didn't see anything. I know there are a couple other diseases that can really alter the estrogens, but I wasn't looking either. I know I did come across some, like I said, PMS symptom management, and it would be. Absolutely. And really, I would even offer to say that it would be effective in lowering the doses of other medications you're on and supplementing with the oils, even if they're not a strong enough symptom manager to be used on their own. I would bargain that that is probably effective as well, but no, I'll have to go home and look that up. Anything else?
I guess one other interesting thought I had is that part in men where right when we sweat and before the odor part, I guess what would be an example of that you find, like after a game of basketball where you're not odorous but you're sweaty, or after being outside in the yard, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Just curious, what did you find in your research? Did you find any examples?
I really didn't find anything speaking to, like, at what point does that happen. We'll be able to tell you at what point it's gone. No, it didn't say. It's probably a little bit more of your natural smell. Men have a proclivity to sweat more frequently and for much simpler, easier reasons. So probably after basketball is too late. All right, any more questions? No? Okay, well, thank you guys for being here.